Welcome, friends. Today, I want to take you on a journey that unites two worlds we often keep separate: the scientific and the spiritual. At first glance, they seem like opposites, but if we look closely, we'll find they're simply languages describing the same dance. Science gives us the precision of numbers and laws, spirit gives us the poetry of metaphor and meaning. Together, they reveal a truth that's both ancient and new. The Kybalion, one of my favorite books, a Hermetic text written over a century ago, spoke of atoms forming through the attraction of opposites. It describes electrons, the so called feminine corpuscles, clustering around the positive masculine core. Of course, science today would describe this differently, but the essence is surprisingly similar. Modern atomic theory tells us that the heart of every atom lies a dense nucleus made of protons and neutrons. Around it, electrons form a cloud, not neat like marbles circling, but a blur of probability, like fireflies darting around a lantern. These electrons carry negative charge, always held close by the positive pull of the nucleus. This excites me. I'm sorry. What the Kybalion called the feminine seeking union with the masculine. Science calls the electrostatic attraction of opposites. But there's even more wonder here. Each electron is not just a negative particle, it's also a tiny magnet carrying an intrinsic spin. I love this. Imagine billions of little spinning tops with miniature compasses inside them. When aligned, they create the forces we know as magnetism, electricity, even the light we see. In fact, light itself is born when an electron leaps to a higher energy level, then falls back and releases its energy as a photon. What Hermetic writers called the dance of gender, modern science calls quantum transitions. So the question is not whether Hermetic wisdom was right or wrong, is it that both science and spirituality are describing the same underlying truth in different ways. The universe is a great polarity, a ceaseless rhythm of positive and negative, masculine and feminine, attraction and repulsion, always seeking balance, always generating new forms. And we see this truth echoed in our most sacred traditions as well. For instance, in the Aramaic translation of the Lord's Prayer, the original tongue of Jesus, we hear not our Father who art in heaven, as the King James Version gives us, but instead, O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of our being, carve out a space within us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus, as the Hail Mary in the Catholic tradition speaks. Do you feel the difference? Instead of distant father, this is a cosmic womb, a divine feminine presence birthing light, creativity, and abundance into us. It's the same polarity that Kybalion describes: masculine and feminine as the twin forces of creation. One without the other is incomplete. Together they bring forth all light. I was thinking about this on my walk this morning, and I realized that, the Kybalion says God, the Father good, is one. One is all is in one. And it doesn't describe it as the masculine and feminine as the source, the God source. But what we notice is that the closer we get to the denser forms of being, and I would say the three most dense forms are the earth, the rock, the animals, and human life itself, which is in itself animal. It Then we have our spiritual densities that perhaps we're moving into, hopefully we're moving into. And maybe In the psychic form, there's still gender polarity. Um, but beyond that, I feel like that polarity of masculine and feminine is no longer needed. The attraction is more cohesive as we get more spiritual. But as we get more dense and we live in this human life and this human ego form, there's polarities all around us, cold and hot, dense and liquid, hate and love. We're learning with these polarities, but we can also learn that we can't exist without both sides of those poles. And we meet somewhere in the middle where our energy is engendered and empowered. Here's what struck me most about this prayer. The, it doesn't begin with masculine command, but with the feminine act of birthing. The creator is first and foremost the birther, the mothering presence that nurtures all things into existence, at least on this level where we're talking about on the earth realm, where in Genesis it said God created the involution of all that is physical form. Of course, maybe before that Genesis, there was all kinds of spiritual forms that were existing and coexisting with the all, the God, the Father good. So we see that the masculine then is not erased, but revealed into its true role, the one who holds intention, who directs, who sets this dance in motion. But without the feminine, intention has nowhere to land. Without the womb of spirit, there's no fruit. For me, this realization has turned my spiritual practice upside down. If I wanted to be spiritually successful, it isn't enough to push with masculine will as I've done in the past. I must learn to court, to woo, to tenderly honor the divine feminine presence in me and in God, because she is the one who births light and radiance into form. This is the sacred marriage, the masculine holding the space of intention, the feminine opening into birth and creation. Together, they are the pulse of the universe. Now, let's bring this back into body where we are now. Why do we get dizzy when we spin? Inside your ear are tiny canals filled with fluid. When you spin, that fluid keeps moving even after you stop. Your body says, I'm still, but your inner ear says, we're still moving. The result is disorientation, dizziness. In scientific terms, it's just inertia and fluid dynamics. But spiritually, it's a perfect parable of polarity. One part of you says stillness, another says motion. The tension between opposites creates the illusion of imbalance. And isn't that what we're feeling here a lot of times on this earth plane? And here's where Spirit gave me a surprising insight. Sometimes imbalance is the doorway to balance on another level. Doorway of the heart opens inward. The mystics, like the whirling dervishes, spinning is a spiritual practice, a deliberate way of loosening the body's hold so that the soul can ascend. For children, spinning is innocent joy and laughter, breaking the rigid rules of balance. And for me, I've been led to spin before I sleep at night, almost as if Spirit was preparing me to let go of my earthly anchor, to allow my mind to step beyond the body into freer realms before I go to sleep, before my spirit lets go into the arms of perfect balance and love. Perhaps you've noticed this in your own life, how sometimes confusion, dizziness, or imbalance becomes the very opening for spirit to enter. The body must yield before the soul can fly. And just when I was meditating on this very principle, Spirit sent me a messenger, a little Shih Tzu, gray and white, trotted up to me while I walked. She stopped to relieve herself, but when I gently called, she rolled onto her back in submission, showing me her belly. I petted her, and suddenly we were in a dance of love. She licked my face, bounced with joy, chased me as I moved. For those few minutes, it was pure delight. I miss my little Coco who died about a year ago, and my heart fluttered like a songbird, like I was still playing with my beautiful dog. This dog was a female. She was playful. She was surrender and joy all at once. And in her, I saw the living parable of the very principle I had been studying: imbalance, surrender, union, and joy. The feminine does not resist, it opens, it yields, and in yielding, it magnetizes love. Science may tell us about electrons spinning, about particles dancing between states, about as dizziness as fluid in the ear. But spirit shows us the same lesson through life itself: the dog's surrender, the spinning of the body, the shimmering of electrons, and even the Aramaic prayer that begins with the cosmic birther. All of them point to one eternal truth: the universe is love seeking union. When we yield, we enter the dance. So today, perhaps consider your own imbalance not as a failure, but as an invitation. What if the dizziness in your life is really Spirit's way of loosening your grip so you can find a higher balance? What if the feminine principle, the openness, the yielding, the play, the courting, was the very key to unlocking joy in you? That's what my little encounter with the Shih Tzu taught me. And that, I believe, is how science and spirituality together can point us back to the eternal dance of the divine feminine. If this message touched you, please subscribe and explore my books, Zeroing Out, The Secret to Peace and Personal Power, and Getting Older with Grace. Both of these you can find on Amazon in Kindle format and in audiobooks.